Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reisberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Nik Sheasby, a roamer, wanderer, and old soul looking for new adventures. Please enjoy Nik Sheasby. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Nik Sheasby, a roamer, wanderer, and old soul looking for new adventure. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here.
Wonderful. I'm really excited to chat with you about creativity and hear your own musings and experience, and I'm sure fun stories woven in as well. But before we dive in, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Nik Sheasby. I've worked until this year in the music industry for the last 16 years between venues and then touring with bands. I usually run the VIP realm. So I usually am like the jester for the bands, trying to entertain the people who are paying lots of money to either meet them or have a VIP pre-party. So I get to hang out with really awesome fans and make good friends out of that and show them a really cool time and appreciation for them for propelling music. Or I do merchandise. So again, front facing and hanging out, selling some t-shirts. And yeah, so I had done that up until what we are all currently experiencing all around the world. So then this year it just kind of shifted to have to figure out life in general and get creative. It was a good year to get creative. So I started a podcast. My partner and I bought a van and drove around the country and socially distanced ourselves from a lot of things for 4 months, and that was fantastic. So
right on.
That's a little bit about me. I love to roam around. I love traveling. It's just woven into who I am, and it's what I miss the most. I was fortunate to do a lot of traveling during the pandemic, but I miss going other places and seeing other cultures and meeting other people.
I feel that so deeply as well. The missing that cultural experience and hearing different languages and eating different foods and being immersed in a new experience and culture. So I feel ya.
Yeah. And like you said, with the languages, I love going and just hearing the poetic languages flowing over, and they could be saying horrible things about me and I have no idea, and it sounds beautiful. So it's fantastic.
Right. Just giving a new part of our brain opportunity to spark some neurons and stuff. So very cool. I love it. Well, we are definitely going to chat about creativity today. You just seem like such a spark of creativity yourself. So when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
To me, I think it's seeing the mundane and making it something fascinating or challenging. Just looking at everyday life, because we all have everyday life. We have our jobs, even if they're exciting jobs or not exciting jobs. If we have friendships, we have relationships, parents, any kind of anything in life, it gets to be mundane, no matter what it is. So I see creativity as finding what you have in life and then making it fascinating, making it a challenge.
I like that. I hear a lot of people talk about kind of the other way around, that creativity is the problem solver. And for you, it's like the fascinating, challenging instigator. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's finding that beauty in every inch. There's a song that I love, I talk about a lot in my podcast, but it says snails see the benefit, the beauty in every inch. And another part of my story, which we'll get into, I'm sure, there was a point in my life where I literally had to change something so drastically, and then find that. I had to find creativity. I had to find purpose literally in every moment in life because I almost lost it. And it just really switched my brain to a different part of getting creative, of just, you have to be creative every day to survive, to make it through this life and make it fun. I mean, life should be a good time. So that's what I see creativity as, is finding the fun in what you aren't necessarily supposed to have fun in.
Fair enough. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And being able to, like, say creativity saved my life, or it supported saving my life and helped me navigate it in a new way. Yeah. And what a gift to be able to share with other people. And I think takes a lot of courage to look through a new lens at life and the world and have a big transformation impact you so deeply.
Yeah, totally. And it does take courage. It does, you just have to have a good amount of open-mindedness to it, to say, okay, this sucks, but let's see what we can make fun of it. Because I grew up in a small town too, and it was like, there just wasn't much going on. It was like, go outside and play. And we just created, and there wasn't much going on. There wasn't places to go really, but we just had a good crew of kids around, and we just ran around and made stuff up. You know? And it's just like, I don't think we get enough of that in our adult lives. I think we lose that of just, we get into this cycle of we have to do this and have to do this, and then it's not supposed to be fun, and it's like, but why else are we here?
Right.
Because you can't take the money with you. It doesn't go anywhere. So if all you're doing is living to make that money, but everything else is suffering, what good is it? So I think just life, you need to be creative. You have to figure out where to find that play in your life again.
Absolutely. Denzel Washington has a quote about, like, you can't hitch a U-Haul to your hearse. Like, right. You better use it while you got it, while you're here. Make the most of it. I love just being a kid and going out and playing, and that was such a part of my reality too as a kid, and pretend and play. And then growing up or getting older, I think a lot of people, we have these like factors that reduce our creativity that we bump up against and experience. But when we're kids, there's such a freedom and such a flow that we very easily hop into and want to spend a lot of time there. And so when you think of like being a kid, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Oh man, that was a fun one. It just got me thinking back to where I grew up, and I had a friend of mine who we always skateboarded. We just played outside. We played all the sports, but we just had a fascination with building contraptions. And I feel like it was because I watched like those Magnificent Men and their flying machines way back in the day, which I hadn't thought about in a long time. But then I was like, maybe that was where it was, because my grandfather loved that movie and we watched it a ton. And so we would take a skateboard deck and we'd take a piece of plywood and we'd set it on top, and then we'd put a lawn chair on top of that and we would push each other. And then we were like, well, we're not going that fast, so can we make it faster? So we made a sail, because why wouldn't you make a sail? And then we just like, it was in Ohio too, so we don't have big hills, so it was like it was just kind of a steady decrease. And so we would just like fly down this little hill down into our neighbor's yard, and then their dad would come out and be like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like,
making
we're
cool
just
stuff,
having a good time. I don't know, like, I'm sitting in a lawn chair on a skateboard. That seems fun to me. Why not?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I mean, imagination is incredible, and innovation. I mean, it sounds like you had all these creative, fun ideas, and you and your friends decided we're going to put this into action and actually do something with those ideas. And look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to sit on a lawn chair and ride into our neighbors' yards and then get looked at very funny. But yeah, it was, we just, like I said, we didn't know anything else. So we just went outside and we just ran around and we just figured it out. And it was like, yeah, let's put some stuff on these skateboards or whatever. Let's build something in the backyard or whatever it was. And it was just so innocent and fun. And you don't think of it as creative then because it's just what you know. It's just what kids do. And I was actually listening to a book today, and they were talking about these schools in the Netherlands and the UK, and then there's one here in Massachusetts. And I was just talking about how they took the structure away, and the teachers weren't teachers, they were coaches. And then there were offices that the teachers held for their own, but the kids could come in and say, we need this for a meeting. So the coaches would have to leave. And it was just amazing because there was this one example they used of this kid who was trying to study German and French, and in a regular school, he was getting bullied and he was just suffering and he couldn't learn well because it was just rigid, regimented, and it just didn't work for him. And then he got to this other school, and then in 1 year he was conversational in German and French, and then he had gotten a scholarship to a school in Japan that he was going to go study at. And it was just this open concept of be yourself. There's some structure of you have to check in at the end of the day and show what you've learned, but it was be yourself, learn what you want to learn. There was no, hey, you're 12, he's 17, you can't learn together. It was just go for it, figure it out. And it was studying this, studying the brain patterns of it. And it was pretty fascinating. And I was thinking, it's so true when we just get into these patterns where it's, you have to do this. And then they even said you get into a class and you go for an hour, and then you're just starting to click and get it, and it's firing up there. And then the bell rings, you go to the next class, and it's like, oh, well, now I have to put something else in my brain. So that is gone. And it's like, yeah, I think it doesn't surprise me when kids get so smart when they're young because they're doing what they love. They get to be free and they get to just not have to worry and feel all these feelings that we get as we get older. And it's such a beautiful way to just create, because when kids just talk to themselves and they're playing even with a G.I. Joe or a Barbie or a bear, whatever they are, they're talking, they're having tea time, they're doing this. It's so creative because something in their mind that you don't even know. It's just like,
it is amazing.
It's your world. You're creating your own world at that point.
Yeah. That sounds like a really cool school.
I know. I was like, damn it. I wish I could have gone to that one.
Yeah.
That would have been so rad.
That's so great. And, in hearing kind of the challenges that some of these kids were facing, and I'm curious, in your own life, what are some of the creative challenges that you've faced, and then how do you face them?
Man, a lot of them come in my writing. I try to write because it's one thing that I've been trying to do for a long time is write my story, because I do have a hell of a story, and it's something that holds power, and I'm getting better at it. And my mom is a English teacher, and she's always like, you need to write your story. And I'm like, Mom, I'll write the story, but you probably don't want to read it. I'll just say that. Right. It's probably one of those that you don't want to read about your son. So I found a massive block when this whole COVID started. It's just like lockdown happened, and I was like, great, I have all this time to write. I'll be creative. And it just hit. I couldn't do anything with it. Yeah. So what I did is I was like, okay, I have to look at this. Like, I want to create something. I want to do something. And I was seeing a lot of just nonsense going on around with people that I grew up with online. And it was just too much coming in, and there's a lot going on that was disheartening.
Yeah.
And then I told my story a little bit, and I had a friend come out and say, well, dude, that was super powerful. So I was like, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to start into doing something where I come up with a list of questions, and I want to send it to people and have them answer it. And I want to put it out on my website, and I want to call it Beautifully Human, where you just get to answer a bunch of questions, tell stories of your life, and let's break down these stigmas that surround us, sadly, in this world right now. And it was so beautiful because then I started reading stories from my friends, and I started getting to know my friends better. And then it like sparked some creativity in me of like, oh, okay, wow, that it just reminded me of stories. So it sparked at least just writing little bits for me. And it was just so fun. And then it led to actually this conversation with you, because then I started a podcast and started doing that creatively for the first time ever, actually using my voice to create something. So I usually, like we said before, or like I said before, I try to look at it like, okay, I got this problem that I'm trying to get past where I can't write or I can't fill in the blank. And I try to look at it as creatively as possible and say, okay, I'm trying to say this. How do I say it? Maybe it's with somebody else, or I need to get out of my house. How do I do that? I go find something weird that's around Nashville, or I take a drive, or anywhere in the world that I go, I just go find silly stuff that people don't normally look at. And then I find a coffee shop or whatever around there that it's like, oh, it's a whole new neighborhood I've never been to. So I try to adapt and just put myself in a situation where I don't know where I'm at and just kind of get comfortable there.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like you trust yourself so much to say like, I'm going to follow this impulse and see where it takes me. And I trust myself enough that it's going to be an okay space and an okay place. And if it's not, I know how to get out of it, and I can change directions and go from there. Yeah. Yeah. And with my work in the music industry, I've been very fortunate to travel. So that's where the comfortability with travel comes, is I've been to a ton of places. Again, very fortunate to have that. But the one that I think is just so much fun is there's a website called Atlas Obscura, which is one of my favorite websites in the whole world. If you haven't gone to it, any of your listeners, if you're hearing this and you've never done it, do it. It is so much fun. You can click on it on your phone. There should be an app. That's one thing. If anyone from Atlas Obscura is listening, do that. Make an app. It'd be so nice. Anyway, you can just click on it and say, what's near me? And then it brings up like weird monuments. It brings up just the obscure anywhere in the world that you're at. And it is so cool. So when I would go on tour and I was trying to learn new cities or see new things, I would just click on Atlas Obscura. That's where I would go, and I'd be like, oh, okay, Copenhagen, Denmark. There's on one side The Little Mermaid. That's pretty cool. That's neat. Yeah. So many tourists over there. Then on the other side, there's a disfigured mermaid that another man made. And it's way cooler. So I got to see that. And everyone else is over there looking at that. And I'm having no line, no people over there taking photos. And it was just me. And then I got to see the little harbor area that one was in. Oh. So it's cool. I like to even have that little bit of creativity of just going to a new place and not just saying, hey, I know this, it's safe, let's go there. Yeah. Just challenging myself and go find something different. Yeah. I mean, there's so much risk that goes into creativity too. And I think you're really speaking to that about like, take a risk, see what happens. And, trust that something's going to happen. Right. It's okay if it sucks or it's terrible. Right. Still something has happened. Exactly. Because a lot of the time, like we talked about too, is you're sitting there saying, well, this sucks. I'm just sitting here, especially in the pandemic. We've been locked down. And it's not fun, but you can go outside. So like find something that's within 20 minutes of your house. There's plenty of stuff around Denver. There's plenty of stuff wherever people are listening. Literally go to that website, click on it, take a drive, go see something weird. It's so much fun. And it's low risk. Yeah. Most of the time you're just looking at something, but it's also not
it's out of your comfort zone. It's out of your safety net, which I think we need to do so much more. And I'm not perfect at it, but I really enjoy doing that.
I love it. Thank you for the Atlas Obscura website.
You're welcome.
It sounds like I'm definitely going to check that out and see
yeah.
what I can find. And yeah, I love it. And it sounds like all of these things, you know, I love what you were saying, how you worked through that writer's challenge or writing and reaching out to friends and getting them to answer questions for you. And what a cool project. And that you learned so much from it.
Yeah, it was really neat. I knew it would be something special if people took it seriously, and I was just hoping people would, and they did. It was really nice. I mean, so I would say every single one I'd read through it and I was crying, I was laughing. It was so beautiful. It was really, really nice. And what I wanted is to have people who are thinking one way, that they very much just think this way. I wanted them to go, oh, okay. That's how somebody else thinks. Maybe I should open my mind to that without an intrusive way of doing it. This is me and this other person presenting their life. And so if you can sit there and judge them or be just horrible to them simply at the truth of their life, that's a pretty good mirror to look into. So I wanted to do that and just create this like loving place for people to come and share their stories, and also do self-empowerment for them. It wasn't necessarily I have this great idea. It's like, no, just tell your story, because I didn't know how much power my story had. And I was thinking, if I don't know that, you don't know that, that person doesn't know that. And the most common question I got was, why me? And that broke my heart. It made me so sad. I got it every single time, without like every single time. And I said, because of you, that's why. Because your power, your story has power. If you've broken your arm, or a grandfather has passed away, whatever there is, like, there's connection to that story. Somebody out there has been through that, has seen that, has done that, and they've experienced it in their way, but it's happened to them, and there's power in that.
Right, really knitting that common humanity thread through the stories. I love it.
Yeah. So that was how my most recent one, where I was super frustrated because I just couldn't write, and I was like, I have all this time, and I know every single person out there was thinking before this, I don't have enough time, and then I was thinking, I have nothing but time, and I still can't create, and so I just went that way, and then it just kind of opened a whole new avenue for me, which was really fun.
Yeah, sounds super cool. So it just makes me think, like, how would my friends respond to that? Or what stories would I get asking people? Yeah, stories. It also reminds me of the StoryCorps project.
Yeah, I love StoryCorps
as well. I do too. It's awesome.
It's so beautiful. It's just, I wanted to get to know people better. And it's amazing how little you know about your friends when you start to get these stories back. Truly, truly incredible. I'd read these through and I'd just write my friend, and I was like, I am a terrible friend. I didn't know a damn thing about you. What was I even doing? And then also it's their comfortability with sharing and whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's really nice, just even as a get to know the people you think you know.
Totally. Very, very cool. I mean, it just sounds like you have such a rich and deep community around you that really inspires creativity or influences your creativity. And how do you go about cultivating in this community that really supports this in your life?
Yeah, it's been really amazing being in the music industry. I've been surrounded by it for so long. And growing up in small town Ohio, I can tell you I never in a million years thought I would ever do what I've been very fortunate to do. So a lot of my friends that I've picked up along the way have been super creative with music or whatever they're doing. It's a very creative field. And then even here in Nashville, when I moved here, my partner, I kind of joined her friend group. And again, they're all musicians and artists. And what's really been cool is just the vulnerability. I think that helps with creativity is I can show these ideas to people and get true reactions. If it's, oh, that sucks, or whatever
Right.
it may be, or that's really awesome, they're not going to just say, oh, that's cool, Nick, that's cute, nicely done. I've had people who have done stuff themselves that's massively creative, and they like the idea, and then they pitch in on ideas. And so it's just been it's a really good environment, luckily, to cultivate creativity and really go tell you to do it, to motivate you to do it.
Yeah.
And then if you fail, at least you've tried. Because I think that kills creativity so much is, oh, I'll fail.
The
Think
doubt.
about your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Majority of the stuff you're going to try, you're probably going to fail. That's just the truth of it. But it also gives you that experience. And if you failed that, then maybe you piggyback over to another side of it, or there's learning in failure. And I think people lose that along the way. They just get frustrated or sad or mad or whatever it is. And it's just keep going.
Yeah. I think you hit on something really important, the like permission to be vulnerable. I think that's something that we as humans have a hard time doing with other people, particularly in this society, and how to, show up in our vulnerability, be willing to be seen by someone else in our vulnerability. And then what do we do with that? What's going to happen? I think sometimes I think we make things a little too precious, and that can get in our way of doing things, but also, really acknowledging how vulnerable creativity can be.
Yeah. Well, especially when I think too, it happens in non-creative areas of life, but also in very creative areas. I've seen it hinder creativity because you're up against so many people that have amazing, brilliant ideas all the time. And then you bring something and it's just kind of like, here, is this good? And then it's not, or it is, or whatever. And I think just being open and saying, I'm going to do this. This is my idea. I'm going to follow through with it. And it is tough. It's really hard to fully open yourself that way, but it opens up such a beautiful life when you do. And even if you don't think you're creative, you are in little ways. You can always find creativity. And I think people lose that as well, of just everyday stuff. You're creative, even if you're figuring out, I mean, just living through a pandemic, we all got creative.
Right. Exactly.
We all had to get creative. I mean, if you didn't want to go to the grocery store, you had to figure out a new way to do it, or whatever it was. Like, there's little creativities, and if you put that in your mind too, it's a whole new way to think about it, and your brain starts firing a different way of, oh, it doesn't mean creativity. I think is such a scary word to some people. They see movies or music as like the ultimate creativity, and it's like, it can be everyday stuff. Like, you can go create a massive garden in your backyard, and that's one of the most creative things you can do. You're creating life, you're creating beauty. That takes creativity. And some people are like, it's just gardening.
Right.
That's amazing.
Not a big deal.
You're creating. Not a big deal.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
What are some of the little creative everyday things that you've had to adopt?
Oh man, in this time, just I think I had to get creative just with interactions with people. I had to I'm a very touchy-feely, I'm a very hug person. So I had to get creative on just even getting comfortable being around people, and I still am working on that, of just like, it's so different cringing when I see people, or just so I had to get creative in my mind of make it even a little game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we have to stay this amount of distance from each other, and it's a fun little like maneuvering game or whatever, so that was a little bit. I think when I think about, though, the creativity of the day to day was the story I've kind of been hinting around that I had to get really creative about life was a little over 2.5 years ago. I was at the beginning stages of liver failure because of my massive alcoholism.
Yeah.
And I was told that I might not have another night left on this earth, which at 33 is a pretty terrifying, well, at any age, but at that young age to hear that was very horrifying. So that was where just the creativity of literally living and doing, and then creativity. I had to have creativity to stay away from bars, or if I went to bars, be creative in the way of thinking of not drinking, or in these cities that I'd only gone to bars, finding these other places. And I had to get really creative to change my mindset around just everyday life. So in the last 2.5 years, I've just had to massively get creative to change life around, because it was heading to the end very quickly.
Yeah.
So I had to shift gears incredibly quickly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It is a big pivot, big turn, big, like swift, quickly. It sounds also not something that you could necessarily take a lot of time to be like, oh, how am I going to do this now? It's like, no, you're doing it now.
Yeah.
And
and it was literally, don't ever drink again. So I said, oh God, how do I do that? Okay.
Yeah.
I got to figure that out. And then I was at home in my small town in Ohio again, because it was safe and away from everything. And that was like, okay, how do I be here and just function? Because it's tough being there. And then, that was when I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm going to drive to these little places and I'm going to see weird stuff, because that fascinates me. I want to go see abandoned stuff. I want to go see all this. And then I just learned to figure out creative ways to keep my brain from being like, ooh, I need a drink right now.
Right. And it sounds also like really gave yourself permission to do new and different things. Step out of the path of least resistance. Because that path of least resistance, grab a drink.
Yeah.
Step off that path. What the fuck? What am I going to do now?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It was that. I mean, I remember when they told me you might not have you might not be here tomorrow. And all I could think was, fuck.
Yeah.
What have I done? And so that also obviously puts you in a new perspective with monetary. I wasn't thinking about the money that I had in my bank account, because that didn't mean shit. It wasn't going anywhere. And it was just, I had to create a whole new way around it and just go again.
Yeah, a new way of existing and experiencing the world through new eyes, new neural networks, new relationship, exchanges, and
And I was fully jaundiced, so I was very, very yellow, even in my eyes. And so it was very apparent that I was very sick. So I couldn't help but be vulnerable. It was easily talked about. People were looking at me. So it definitely helped my vulnerability, but then it also helped the Beautifully Human blog that I was talking about, because I told my story and I didn't do it for just the accolades. I wanted to talk to the people that were in the back of a tour bus or hiding their booze or thinking that they were hiding or not drinking as much. I wanted to talk to those people who weren't listening in their massive struggle that they were in. And I wanted to say, hey man, that was me. And that's always going to be me. But I had to shift and Don't do what I did. Jump off the boat before you get to the wall.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it is. And I think so many people go through that, whether it's with drugs and alcohol or other forms of addiction, in terms of really shifting their life.
Yeah.
So, and I think what a great reminder that creativity can have a hand in it and can have you know, be your confidant through it too.
Yeah. And I've thought about it so much because I talk about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the power of my story. It's a
Yeah.
massive part. But then when I was thinking about coming on here and talking about it, and I was like, you know what? It really is. It really was hand in hand with me. And it was, I was talking to my partner the other day, and we were talking about childhood and stuff. And she was like, what would shock me about you as a kid? What part of your life would shock me? And I said, honestly, just the really dark days. Me as a kid wouldn't shock you. I was a little shithead, annoying brother and picking and picking and picking. And I'm still that person. And when I was very drunk, I was just a little more me. And then the dark times were the one that was pretty shocking, even looking back. And so, yeah, it was really cool to know the rut that I had put myself in, and I really was in it. It was really, really rough. But then it was that creativity, that wonderment of being a kid again. I literally came so close to dying that now I have this new shot at it, and I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be raw. And I'm going to be creative because I have a voice, and I almost lost everything. So I want to use that voice to be creative for myself, but also break down the stigmas that are around all of us, and just talk and share stories and connect with people. Because that was one thing I knew when I was in that hospital bed, scared to death. It was like, man, not even being vain, I was just thinking, dude, I'm going to make people really sad. Going to be really sad. Like friends, family, it's going to be sad. I've had friends pass, and it's horrible. Yeah. So, it was nice to come out of it and go, all right, going to share these stories, going to get creative with it, and use the voice that I almost lost to promote that.
Powerful. That absolutely is. And what would you like? How would you encourage others to find creativity in their lives?
Yeah, I think honestly, just it can be that simple of if you're sitting on your couch and you're listening to this right now, hit pause, because you can come back to this. You can always come back, and it's dark or whatever. Literally, just go out and go see something different. Go find something around you, especially in these times. I know it's slowly starting to open back up, but you have your comfortability levels. You might not want to be around people. That's fine. It really is that simple of go explore, go see the weird Little Mermaid. It's super fun. The stuff you'll see is so enriching. Have conversations. I don't know how you find pen pals these days, but try and meet somebody in a different country, a different culture. I know we can't travel to them, but if you can connect with people that are just outside of your way of thinking, just to challenge yourself, that's really creative too, to open your mind, especially in these times where it's tough to connect with physical people. So if you can somehow connect to the other side of the world and see what they're up to and see where they're creative, because everyone is in different stages of lockdowns or different stages of the virus, and we've all across the globe had to get creative, even if we didn't think it was creative. It's like, so I just think about what has gotten so mundane in your life and do something different.
I love it. Try something new. Make a new meal, or go walk your dog a different path.
Yes,
see what you notice. Right. Exactly. I love it. Well, thank you for all of those little tidbits.
Yeah.
And I have one final question for you. What is your secret to creativity?
Oh, secret to creativity. I think it's just being open and vulnerable to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just not letting the word control what you create. Because like I said, we get really bombarded by that word and we get really scared of it. And it is a beautiful word. It's so fun to create. But I think people just need to look at it a different way and not take it as I have to do something that changes the whole landscape of the world. Just get creative.
It doesn't have to be precious. That preciousness, so all good. Yeah.
Just get open with yourself. Get vulnerable. Do something that you've never done. Yeah, walk a different way. Yeah, just be open. Let it come to you.
Nice. Openness and vulnerability. What a lovely combination for creativity to emerge and blossom in. So, well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Of course. This is so fun.
Yay. And if people want to learn a little bit more about you, about your podcast, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah. So my podcast is called The Beautifully Human Podcast, and it is on all streaming sites. So wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can listen to that. And it truly is, it's so fun. I talk a little bit, you hear a little tiny bit about my story, but I try not to talk much in the podcast. So that's why it's fun being on this one. So I can talk a lot more. But it's truly really beautiful conversations with friends to strangers from all across the world, just hearing about life. So I encourage you to check it out. It's a lot of fun to make. It's very enriching. It's mind opening for sure, of just hearing stories of different ways of life. So yeah, I would just say find me there, on the Instagram too. Wanderlust Moon Duo is my travel one. I post not as much now, but when I travel, I post a lot of travel photos. So yeah, come connect. I love meeting new people and connecting.
Wonderful. And I'll put all that information in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for joining me today and chatting about creativity.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.